Good marketing is really just good communication. And good communication means you go deeper. Welcome to the Soul Sourced Podcast, unconventional business advice for the highly creative, secretly sensitive, and wildly ambitious entrepreneur. I'm your host, Christine Kane. Let's do this. Welcome to episode number 41 of the Soul Sourced Business Podcast. And I am now on start number 3 of this episode because Pearl the Wonder Kitten is chasing her tail on the rug right next to me, and she has stopped and recognized I've started an episode and has started to attack the microphone cord. So we're hoping she'll go back to her tail right now. But I'm going to discuss a very important topic today about the skill set of seeing yourself clearly. And it's the skill set of being able to step outside of you and be able to see you really clearly. And the way I often teach this is really about content. And when you're writing and when you're creating something, there is the act of creating it, there is the act of offering it, but there's also the act of stepping outside of it once it's complete and then being able to describe why someone would be interested in it. So when I teach blog writing to my clients, or when I teach actually anything, whether it's a podcast or a blog or a YouTube video, I always tell them that there is a step that comes once you are complete with the content, and that is stepping outside of it and writing why somebody needs to go read it. Why does this matter to somebody? And this is something that as business owners and marketers, we have to learn how to do, because otherwise we end up in this very entitled place, very much like my my family in academia, where when students don't sign up for the courses, there's just this harumph kind of a thing of like, well, come on, it's such a great course. And I see that a lot in artistry, in academia, in the arts for sure. But one of the things that differentiates a marketer from just a plain old business owner is that the marketer, the business owner who is a marketer and takes themselves seriously as a marketer, recognizes that you have to stop the habit of being entitled and thinking, well, they should just know it's just such a great topic, or my book is just wonderful and therefore they should read it. And I don't think any of us walk around thinking this way, but a lot of us just have that built into us because we never learned the skill set of stepping outside of ourselves, stepping outside of our content, and then asking ourselves, how would I describe this to someone? How would I make this compelling so that someone would want to come and read it? And I know it's something that makes us roll our eyes in our world of just way too much content, way too much noise out there. But it's a skill set that's really wonderful for us to learn. And a lot of people have asked me about the choice between being a self-published author versus going with a publisher and having to write a book proposal and all that kind of extra work that goes along with getting a publishing deal. And one of the reasons I was really fascinated at the prospect of talking to an agent and pursuing a book deal was that I would have to step outside of my book and be able to talk about why the book mattered to anybody. And I knew how hard that would be. And I also knew that that would be very painful. So I did it because that's just how I am. And it is really, really hard. And my book, The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur, does not just make sense in and of itself. It doesn't just sell itself. I had to go in and see, even though I've worked with my clients for 12 years, I had to say, ask myself, who is this person? What do they want? Why do they want this? Why does this matter? I have been just literally swimming in a sea of this person and coaching them and working with them. But to actually take that skill set, to step outside and see this thing that I do from a marketer's eyes, from an agent's eyes, from a book publisher's eyes, was a whole different skill set that was pretty hardcore to learn and pretty deep to go through. Now, what I want to talk about today is the same kind of thing, but I want to talk about it in terms of you. And that is the skill set of seeing yourself as a business and what you do and being able to articulate it and pull out why you even matter. And I'm not saying this on an existential level. Of course you matter. We love you. You're awesome. You're so very special. However, as a business owner, as a business, as a marketer, and in whatever service you provide, whatever product you provide, at some point in your trajectory, you are going to have to develop the skill set of stepping outside of yourself and seeing yourself. And there's a very good reason why I wanted to do this today, and that is because I just did a training. I was invited to an event with a group of business owners. Most of them were solo business owners. And I was invited as the author of a new book, I was invited to teach a 2-hour training on growing your business. And the person who invited me to this wanted me to talk about my book, but in the usual way of a quick start entrepreneur, I was kind of like, oh, they can go read the book. They can go get the book. I want to talk about some of the strategy of business and combine it with the soul-sourced entrepreneur, like how that soul part comes to play in your marketing. And so what I taught, some of you already know this, but I taught a model that I teach for setting up your business in terms of how you market to your customer or client. And I taught this model. It's called the Client Matrix. And if you guys sign up for or join the Uplevel Cafe, the membership we're opening the doors to very soon, depending on when you're listening to this, you can go to uplevelcafe.com. I do walk through this training in there. It's one of the trainings in there. It's called a Jumpstart. Those are the trainings. But you can get that there. And everything I'm talking about here will be in Uplevel Cafe for your use whenever you want. But for now, what I want to say is that this client matrix model that I taught is a model for really and truly understanding your client, understanding the path they're on, and then understanding what you need to do as a marketer at each level of their journey. And the important thing about this is that I kind of turn the whole thing upside down because I teach the model and then I teach something that is what I call the foundation of the entire model that most people completely ignore when they teach marketing models. And that foundation is something I call the Foundation 5. And I'm not going to go into the, teaching the Foundation 5. You can get that in Uplevel Cafe. The important thing to understand, however, is that the elements, these 5 elements, are the thing that informs every single piece and part of your marketing. And a lot of people dismiss this as the soft stuff, what I call the soul track. But it's the key to making your marketing really stand out and really be compelling to your ideal client. And the Foundation 5 are these 5 different elements. They are who you serve, the problems you solve, the results you offer, the value you deliver, and the message you teach. Those are 5 things. Don't need to go into them because they're just really going to serve what I want to teach here today. And that is that when I was teaching these things, these 5 elements, everyone was getting very excited and very animated about it. And I started to coach some of the people who were on that training in their Foundation 5. And what's really interesting is that no matter how many years I have taught this, the same challenge, the same obstacle comes up for business owners, entrepreneurs, and marketers when they're looking at their own business. It's the same challenge that comes up when you're looking at your content and having to write the why someone should go read it. But now you're talking about all of these elements of who you are and how you work and why they matter so that you can share these things in your marketing. And what often happens is that once we step out of our business and start looking in at ourselves, we don't have the skill set of seeing ourselves clearly. And what tends to happen with the secretly sensitive entrepreneurial type that I talk about, and that it's not, necessarily people who are healers and artists. I had somebody who was a lawyer on this training. I had somebody who was a consultant on this training. I had several coaches as well. So I was coaching different people. But what we tend to do is that we don't know how to step outside and look at ourselves very clearly. So what we try to do is we jump up into our head. We make it a mental game. And we use things like, I got to figure out my foundation 5. We say that kind of thing. I got to figure out who I serve. I got to figure out the problems I solve. I got to figure out the results I deliver. And what I tell people is that this is not a figuring out. This is not a upward movement into your head. What this is the skill set of going deeper inside of yourself. And so the activity of doing this is actually more of a mining, like you're mining for something, rather than a figuring out of something. And good marketing is really just good communication. And good communication means you go deeper and you really look at these areas of the foundation 5 from the fact that you're already in it. You're already doing it. So when I was coaching one person who comes to mind right now, who is a lawyer, she works with lawyers, she was saying, I don't know all this stuff. I don't know my value. I just get really nervous having to deal with very smart attorneys in these big corporations. But then as I started to talk with her, it was almost like as a coach, I was talking to a fish and trying to explain to the fish that they were really swimming in water. Because the value that she delivered, the client she served, everything was very obvious. It's just that she was so deep in it. She was so busy swimming around in it that the way I describe this to some of my clients is that it's almost like I've got to take the fish, put him outside of the water, give him a pair of tennis shoes and have them walk around and look in their water and be like, see, there's water. And so the skill set here is something where you have to stop, mucking around in all of the work you do that you just do naturally and intuitively, and take kind of an objective step out of it and really look deeply and say, who am I? What am I doing here? What are the problems that my client brings to me in their words? What are the results that we create together in their words? What is different about me? What is the value that I bring to the table? Whatever that is, and that can be in your words. And probably you've heard all of this as feedback from clients over and over and over again, but we feel like there's some kind of big ego thing, that we're going to somehow become this egomaniac if we start to objectively say, hey, this is what I do. So for instance, with the Soul-Sourced Entrepreneur, the subtitle of the book kind of just says who I serve. It's highly creative, secretly sensitive, and wildly ambitious. And there isn't ego in that. It's just, this is how I work. This is who I work with. And what we have to do is step out of the idea that marketing means ego and lying and puffery, and start thinking to ourselves and reframing that marketing is actually a very high level of service so that that person feels understood. A lot of us think that marketing is about us being seen and us and our logo and our brand being understood. But really great marketing is when that person feels seen and understood. Your client feels seen and understood. And so this activity of stepping outside of yourself and seeing yourself and your service and your business very clearly is the foundation of all of your marketing. There's also another level that this skill set starts to really require, like it kind of when it starts to up level, is as you build your business, really understanding what you're amazing at and what your unique ability is, to lean on Dan Sullivan's phrase of unique ability. We call it your superpower. And I think more than ever, this skill set of seeing yourself clearly also has to come with honoring yourself. Because we now live in a world where at any given moment, you are seeing people who are succeeding doing this or succeeding doing that, or kicking ass over here doing this and scaling their business this way. And if you don't have a sense of groundedness and centeredness about being able to see yourself clearly and what you're great at, you're going to just feel tossed and turned in this ocean of shoulds and demands and calls to action, and you're never going to understand what it is you do. And I was just talking about this. I have a client in CK on Call, which is my private coaching level where I work with people one-on-one, and we use the app Voxer back and forth quite a bit. So it's kind of like an all access to me. And typically at this point, people are pretty successful in their business. And I'm working with somebody right now who is very successful, 5 million in revenue, doing amazing things in the world. And we were talking about various people in the internet coaching world who are so successful. So you see at any given moment, you see somebody like a Brooke Castillo who took her business from, 300,000 to 17 million. Or you see somebody like Jenna Kutcher who had the same kind of trajectory, super successful. And then I countered that by saying, okay, but then let's look at somebody like a Dan Sullivan who went very slowly on his path and really stuck with exactly who he is. That's great too. And he never was a number one bestseller. Actually, none of them have been number one bestsellers. But we were talking about all these different people. And what I guided her to look at was who they are, not, oh, you should be doing this too. Oh, here's how to do this. Oh, you can scale too. Because that makes people hyper and frightened and freaked out. And then you're always grabbing at somebody else's energy. And so the skill set of stepping outside of yourself and really seeing who you are means really understanding what lights you up. So someone like Brooke, who is a friend of mine, she has been a money whisperer, in the words of Martha Beck, forever. Like, she is just fantastic at that. She's smart at business. She's savvy. She's also just a very, very powerful force field and energy. I don't know a whole lot of people who can sustain that level of power and life force. She is amazing in that way. And I don't know Jenna Kutcher, but I'm assuming she's the same way. But it's really good to look at the different paths people have chosen for themselves and really ask yourself, what is their energy? What is my energy? What do I love to do? And this is what I did with my client. We really brought it home to what her skill set is, which is a lot more about that boutique, one-on-one, high touch, premium pricing, high service kind of work that she does with clients. And I don't want to reveal too much about her because she serves celebrities, and I don't want to walk into that tender territory. But it's something where when you see your skill set and you honor what lights you up and what you love to do, then that is what you want to amp up. You want to do that and do that hardcore and honor that. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn into a 7-figure, 8-figure kind of a business. But what it does mean is that you will stay super connected. You will know what you're doing, who you are, why you do it. Not necessarily from that Simon Sinek, you got to have a purpose and it's got to be really big. It's just a cleaner sense of knowing that this is how I do it and this is who I am. And so coaching becomes more of a reflective thing for you. You aren't constantly being pushed and pulled by the many demands of the online world and all that comparing that starts to come in, because comparison is the mind killer, if I may paraphrase from Dune for a moment. But we are in this time where more than ever, with your marketing and with yourself as a business owner, this skill set of seeing yourself clearly is so crucial and so powerful that it really starts to attract your ideal client to you, and it also attracts your own energy back to you, because too many of us, our energy is just being given to every last thing outside of us. And I happen to believe that a business that runs very cleanly and clearly is more sustainable than one where you're just grabbing and trying and working, and there's so much hyped up stuff around it. And so all of this is that call, once again, to go deep, to deep dive, and to mine for this stuff. In other words, stop avoiding going within and looking clearly. And what I can tell you is that something like the Foundation 5, for instance, it's not an afternoon activity. Even though I taught it in 2 hours and coached people on it, it's something that is revisiting over and over and over again, and really asking yourself clearly. It's not just something you whip up and you figure out. It's something that goes deeper. And it's the same thing for you as an entrepreneur and a business owner. You going deeper and you understanding who you are takes you down and grounds you. It's almost like you create roots so that all this streaming and all this noise and all this stuff out there and all the messaging that's out there doesn't rock you as much as it has in the past, because you know who you are, and you can let other people be their unique ability, be their superpower, while you get to be your own superpower. Okay, so if I was going to give you an assignment at the end of this episode, I'm not going to give you any mental bullet pointed list or anything like that. But what I would like you to do is just start a little practice of, before you start your work each day, before you sit down at your desk and log into Facebook and start looking at all the messaging and start in on your to-do list, take a moment, just like 3 minutes. And the way I would put this would be not to ask your mind, not to ask your brain, but to just drop, like, it's almost like dropping a pebble into a well or something. And really just ask yourself, who am I in all of this? Just to get the little wheels turning, and that fear of going deeper, and that avoidance of really looking at what you perceive to be a whole lot of messiness inside of you. Because this will show you that there's not as much messiness, that once you stop avoiding this, suddenly you understand, oh, there are marketing messages here. Oh, there is value here. Oh, I do have some very unique abilities and superpowers. And maybe it's time to just start honoring them. And I'm just going to leave you with that today. You guys, thanks so much for listening. I will see you next week.
If I were me, I'd live my life. Get out and see what the world is like. The only thing they'll be saying is she's different now, and she lives down south, and she says to say hello to you.